And these are a few quotes directly from the survey. So often neighbors, neighborhoods that are only residential don't have community spaces or community events. So you have these these large suburbs, but there's you can only drive to different places. There's not a lot happening. Many neighborhoods are faced with crumbling infrastructure. This is, I think, it's a problem in some communities. It's more of a problem in Eastern Canada, where there's a lot more older infrastructure, if you will. Traffic going through neighborhoods makes safety an issue when it comes to increased walking, biking, area spaces for kids to play. And incentives that encourage more of a traditional kind of development are well established as well. So it's often single use functions, not mixed use functions. Land use and neighborhood design patterns create a particular physical reality and compel behaviors that have a significant effect on the environmental performance of a given place. So again, the way that we're building and designing things really does have an impact on neighborhoods. Segregated land use is accessed by high-speed roadways that necessitate the use of cars have been the predominant development pattern for the last 50 years, as we know. We've also seen that there are increases in greenhouse gas emissions, and now we're getting into perhaps some of the additional statistics. So if you look at the difference between low density and high density neighborhoods, there's a significant difference in the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that come from higher density neighborhoods. Water use, on average, we use about 390 liters of water per day. I know in Okotoks, as many people would know here, they've got a great water policy, and they've sort of set a limit to growth on how much water they can take from the river without messing up the ecosystem. And they've done a really good job at becoming more efficient. I think theirs is down below 200 liters a day, if I'm correct. And I met with the city manager, Rick Quayle, a while ago, and he said, yeah, he was kind of patting himself on the back saying, that's great, now we're the best of the laggards. So there's a little bit of humor in it, but there's also a recognition that they still do face a serious challenge in how much water they're using. I think the other one that's quite interesting down below here is that 3% of the water that we filter, that we spend a lot of money of our tax dollars filtering, is consumed by humans. The rest goes into other types of production or comes out through leakage or what have you. But that's a pretty low number if you look at the cost of actually filtering water. And I'm not saying that that's applicable here in the city of Calgary. I don't know what the actual numbers are for specific cities, but in general, there's a significant amount of water that goes through filtration but is lost. Impacts on buildings. So again, this is part of our current reality. Buildings, transportation industry, those are, so from a greenhouse gas perspective, according again to the Canada Green Building Council, these are the global CO2 emitters. Waste, here's another one. The waste that comes from new developments, from retrofits, from renovations, and I know this well because I'm going through a bit of a home renovation myself, makes up a significant amount of the waste going to landfill. Again, that comes back to us from in a tax perspective, where we've got to put in place more landfills to treat and deal with the waste. On the positive side, because it's not all bad news, if we start to look at neighborhoods, and in order to move to neighborhoods that are more vibrant, livable, and sustainable, the first thing we need to do is understand what that means and agree that we're working towards it. So I'm going to talk about some of those characteristics. But from a positive side, there is research out there now that demonstrates that there can be an increase in tax revenue, for example, for municipal governments that encourage and support increase in density. And it doesn't mean density like 6 or 20-story apartment building where everyone's crowded in like sardines in a can. These are very livable, fun, enjoyable places to live, and I've got some pictures coming up on that. Another interesting one, from a transportation perspective, if you look at local job creation, economic development, you get more bang for your buck when you're looking at bike lanes, boulevards, pedestrian facilities, etc., than you do with cars, which I found quite interesting. I think Alberta is doing really well with respect to sustainability, looking at other municipal governments and communities across the country. A number of cities have invested in creating sustainability departments, have provided training to staff, and we're seeing the creation of new neighborhoods. We're seeing demonstration projects like Ride the Wind here in Calgary, or Drake's Landing down in Okotoks, or up in Edmonton with how they deal with wastewater and are recycling lots of their wastewater for industrial purposes. So Alberta's doing very well, especially at the municipal level. The other part of that is that it's not only the municipal government's responsibility. Businesses that operate in those neighborhoods are also responsible, and members of the public are too. You know, we spend now a significant amount of our time in front of the television, and the relationships that exist, which came out through the survey as well with Albertans, that they don't know their neighbors anymore. They don't have that connection with their neighbors. And that deteriorating sense of trust, if you will, is also one of the barriers that we identified in the surveys. So how can we bring people back together so that we can address those solutions? We can get people more involved at the neighborhood level, at the community level, by creating opportunities for them to come out and have meaningful dialogues about what they would like to see in their neighborhoods. So right now, planning, for example, you have multiple players that offer different services at the neighborhood and community scale. You have people who are providing health services, you have municipal government who's providing different types of infrastructure services, you have other perhaps low-income housing or other types of social services. So there are all these different things that are taking place, and they're not always coordinated. So part of the approach of getting people out is to have meaningful conversations about how they can bring those together and provide better services at a neighborhood scale. One of the encouraging ones that I've seen, and I wouldn't say it's spread right across the industry, but there is more of an awareness that from developers that building in a way that is green or sustainable has advantages. So there are more and more developers who are stepping up to the plate, not only doing the small incremental things like water efficiency and energy efficiency, but really starting to ask some questions around how they design their neighborhoods and how they can design them in a different way. So we have worked with, up in Edmonton, this group called the Landmark Group of Builders. Smaller 200-person operation. They build residential and 3 to 6 story buildings. And they've really asked themselves as an organization some very tough questions about their challenges and how they build buildings and help build neighborhoods. And it's been wonderful to see organizations like that step up to the plate, ask those tough questions, and then make serious commitments to moving in a very different direction. And they're still going to be building buildings, but they're going to be doing so in a way that espouses the benefits of sustainability. I think in Alberta there are a lot of opportunities, the same as in other provinces, to do better. One of them is by really changing the way that we plan and make decisions. Most of our planning, I would say probably 98% of it, is based on forecasting, which means we look at past trends and we project what the solutions will be over the course of the next couple of years. The newer model of planning that more and more organizations are starting to use is based on backcasting. And by that I mean we start with clearly defining what success is, in our case from a sustainability perspective, assessing where we are as an organization or community or neighborhood, and then saying, okay, if that's what success is, this is where we are, these are our problems, then how are we going to bridge that gap between the two? So it sounds simple, but it's a very different way of planning. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that Alberta and other provinces face, is that they need to really wrap their heads around what success is for them as a province, as communities, as businesses. From green organic projects, hybrid cars, electric cars, new products that are coming out from companies, the growth in organics, organic foods, wind power, Ride the Wind here in Calgary, which has been in place for many years. The marketplace is being flooded with these new products and services. So there is some greenwashing, definitely, but there is a demand and a thirst that members of the public are seeing. And it's not only for products. The companies, as graduate students who are coming out of school, are looking for companies that have a really good corporate social responsibility, that are working to do the right thing. And when you're a company trying to attract top talent, that's a big deal. It does make quite a bit of difference. We've worked a lot with different multinationals, large municipal governments, corporations, like Nike as an example, and Interface, which is the world's largest carpeting manufacturer. And we've been able to really help them as a company completely change the way that they make carpet and provide the service of a carpet. And that comes through dialogue and innovation within the organization itself. The same thing needs to happen at the community scale. And there's been a tremendous amount of work across the country in Canada by municipal governments, municipal staff, setting up new sustainability departments, engaging members of the public like here and with Imagine Calgary to have a conversation about how we're going to transition and move towards more of a sustainable future. What Interface has done is that with their carpets, they make them, they don't sell them, they lease them. It's their problem, right? So you're buying the service of the carpet. No one wants, most buildings, when you're dealing with construction waste, for example, you take out an old carpet, where does it go? It goes to the landfill. All right, well, what happens? Well, landfill gets filled up, people's taxes increase because they need more landfills. So what we've done is we live in this take-make waste society, which is linear primarily. And the innovation that's taking place now in the private sector is they're trying to come up with ways to actually close that loop. So it's for Interface, it was a no-brainer because they're able to save money and they're able to have a tighter control over that product. And at the end of the day, customers get the service of that carpet. So they're extremely pleased with that.